Assalamu alaikum and welcome to another session on IT and Automation Academy. As I promised with you guys that I will be bringing some industrial folks here, the experienced guys. I would be talking about some industry specific topics. It is just because of one fact that I was getting a lot of people asking the same question, and that is if we don't have an experience, how actually we can get a job. And I thought of sharing my personal experience, and along with it I would be inviting some industrial folks to talk about some industry specific topics. By that way you would be able to watch industry specific topics and discussion on that. You would definitely learn something from experienced folks. Today I have invited Pat. He's from US. He have an experience of over 36 years. He started working on even before my birth. So even talking to Pat is really one of the valuable experience for myself. Today we would be talking about what are the industrial trends, what is Industry 4.0, and if someone don't have an experience, how he can still be able to manage to get a job. So I request you guys to watch the session till the end so that you can get a maximum out of it. Pat, thank you very much for joining in. I want to hear more about you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you very much. My name is Pat Dixon. I want to thank you for this opportunity to talk with you. I've been around a while. I started in process control back in 1984. A lot of my initial work was in the paper industry, and I've worked with companies like Sappi Paper, Honeywell, Emerson. I've worked for a number of system integrators, and I've also worked as an independent contractor, which is what I'm doing right now. So over my career, I've kind of seen the evolution from when DCS and SCADA really first started to the point now where we're in Industry 4.0, and I've seen that progression carried on into multiple different industries. Paper was sort of where I started, but I've worked for DuPont. I've worked for some semiconductor projects, power and energy, wastewater. So I've kind of seen a lot of different things. Of course, you can't see everything, but I kind of have that broad experience so that right now when we're talking about Industry 4.0, I can kind of see where we came from.
Great. So, Rafey, if you can introduce yourself. I know most of the folks are aware. So,
everybody who's watching. Hi, everybody who's watching. My name is Rafey Shahid. I run a system integration company based out of Karachi, Pakistan. I come from a SCADA software background, specializing in inductive automation, ignition SCADA. We work with system integrators worldwide to provide them with services on ignition, primarily. We started doing ignition plus cloud services on AWS. So that's some of the things that we do.
As a fresher, let's treat, if you're given a chance to start up your career again, what should be your path looking at current, trends, like those who are new? Yeah. If you can add that.
That's an amazing question. That is an absolutely amazing question.
So if I were to start my career over again.
Yes.
What do you want?
I don't think I want to start my career over again. But
oh, wow.
So there's a few points. If you're a college student, one of the things that I think is most important, and it's more difficult today because I'm actually the chair of an academic committee at the engineering department for Miami University. And I know how much pressure there is on students these days, that the number of credit hours they're taking. But what you have the opportunity to do at the university level that is harder to get later is some of that core technology, like if you're really into math, really focus on your opportunity at the college level to dig into math or chemistry or those fundamental sciences. Because once you get into industry, you're going to be more kind of application focused. And if you're in a situation where, boy, I really wish I had more of the understanding of that base science or math, it's
Yeah.
kind of harder to get, and it's more expensive. Well, it can be more expensive. So I tell a college student, if you can, really follow your passion into those areas and maximize your opportunity. Then, what I did throughout my career, I've always had this balance of should I stay technical or go kind of more into management. I've kind of done both.
Okay.
I think probably it's better to choose one and stick with it.
Okay.
I've kind of done both.
Okay.
And it serves me pretty well as a system integrator because you kind of have to wear a lot of hats. You got to manage the project, you got to manage people, but you got to figure out technically how to do the work.
Great.
So those are some ideas.
So I mean, my question is like, if you're an electronics engineer, to be precise, or electrical engineer, you want to be an automation side or an industry 4.0, what you would choose in that time, like from where you would start, like if you have, for example, new graduate asking you, man, I'm graduated and I need your serious guidance, what I should do, and what should be your opinion about that specific thing?
And I assume this person already has accepted a job or not?
No, he's like fresh graduate, he's walking out and he's asking for guidance, like which field I should select. Is electronics or electrical guy?
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's sort of a question of where the market's going, right? But
Yes.
it's also about following your passion.
Yes.
Imagine that you are really passionate about a certain area that maybe is not the hot field of study or field of, but you love it. You're probably going to do better by following your passion than trying to do something that, you could go to Wall Street and maybe make a lot of money being a stockbroker, but you hate it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You'd be better off following your passion.
Of course. Yeah. Got it. So, Rafi, you want to add something? What's your opinion? If you get a chance to go back to...
You want to ask me the same question?
Yes.
Well, if I look, I actually kind of second Pat's opinion on this. For example, this, I don't want to mention what skill set I was not good at or what course I was not good at in school.
Yeah.
But that's one thing I kind of missed. Is like, you know what, I should have concentrated more in that class or just paid more attention in that class, because once you're past that time, there's no going back to college. It's very difficult, and as Pat mentioned, it's more expensive because not only just you're paying for that class, you're also taking time away from the money that you're making for all of those hours that you're taking away from your business hours. So yes, it gets expensive after you graduate, and for engineers who are coming up, again, what you love it's easier to do what you love than what you're forced to do any day of the week. So if you enjoy, buy a $200 or a 20,000, 25,000 rupee PLC, play with it and read the user manuals, read it thoroughly, and there's a lot of information out there. If you really want to, if you're interested in the cloud, learn about the cloud, see how it's working, because even in some aspects of the cloud, if you have to specialize. AWS, for example, has so many different segments in it. If you specialize in one particular segment, you can make money sitting at home during COVID without leaving your house on your computer working on AWS. So the world has opened up and the world is interconnected now. And if you have a good skill set, if you're good at what you do, if you love what you do, you'll definitely end up making money. And roads open up, doors open up. You just have to keep knocking and just keep and you just have to keep knocking on enough doors. It's going to be tough in today's market, and I agree. Especially with engineers who are about to graduate or were just about to graduate. This is their final semester. June they were supposed to graduate. It's going to be tough. These are unprecedented times. Keep your hopes up. And trust me, even professionals who've been in the industry for 10 plus years are going through are struggling, are kind of reevaluating things, and there's no shame in accepting the emotional side of it, where everybody's worried, and that's not a problem. You'll get through it. We did. All three of us were in the same position at one time, and and look, you get through it. You mentioned in our pre-interview discussion something about an Industry 4.0 dictionary. So let's tell us what that is and where you plan to take that.
Yeah, well, there's a short version and a long version. I'll give you the short version, okay?
Good.
So the short version is, I think today there is a lot of confusion, especially for people that have been through Industry 3.0, where things became digital and we had these control systems. Now we see Industry 4.0, and we hear these terms like digitization and IIoT and all these applications, and it's not clear what's really new, what are some of the capabilities now that you didn't have before. So there is a organization within the paper industry called TAPI, the Technical Association of the Paper Industry. They have a subcommittee, and I'm leading a subcommittee to develop a dictionary, what we're calling a lexicon of terminology that's used in Industry 4.0 to define what they are and also what they're not. And if I could give an example, it's sort of like if in the United States, we know what a baseball is. You know what a baseball is. You know, it's a round thing. It has stitches. It's about that big. You can tell the difference between that and a football or a tennis ball or a golf ball by its attributes. You list attributes and you say that's what defines it. So what are the attributes of IIoT? What are the attributes of predictive maintenance or the attributes of cloud or edge? We're trying to define those things so that we can clearly communicate and understand what we're talking about.
Okay.
Now there's an I think the International Society of Automation is also kind of in that space. So are you coordinating with those guys, or what's the overlap? How do you differentiate that?
Perfect question, because the answer is yes. As a matter of fact, before COVID happened, when there were actually meetings taking place here in Austin, the ISA leadership got together and I attended that. And I discussed this idea, and they asked me to formally propose that the result of this TAPI effort go into an effort with ISA. So essentially what we're hoping for is that when we're done with this effort through TAPI, we then go to ISA and roll it out industry-wide.
Okay.
So does ISA currently have similar to this, where they're trying to define things, or no?
No, they do not.
Okay.
And I specifically asked, and it was the leadership of ISA that was there, and I was asking that question, are you doing anything like this? And the answer was no.
Organization is the CSIA, the Control Systems Integrators Association. Are they doing, or do they have an initiative where they're looking at, Industry 3.0 integrators and then the Industry 4.0 integrators? Or
not to my knowledge.
Is that something that's happening?
Yeah, not to my knowledge. I know their focus is to credential system integrators and go through their certification program. I'm not aware of any effort they have along these lines.
How you define Industry 4.0 and what's the importance?
So this will get a little controversial, but here's what our committee is saying right now. The difference between Industry 3.0 and Industry 4.0 is the internet. That's the difference. So most people think about Industry 4.0 in terms of, if you can think of a tree. Let's say you have a tree that bears fruit. And you look and you see the apples that are hanging off the tree, and you think, hey, there's predictive maintenance, there's machine learning, there's asset management. Those are the fruits of the tree. But at the root of the tree, for Industry 4.0, it's the internet. For Industry 3.0, it was computers.
Yeah.
It was digitization.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the way we're distinguishing, because if you look at the industrial eras, Industry 0, the root of the tree was muscle.
Okay.
Human beings, horses, donkeys, that's how we
Yeah.
made stuff. Industry 1 was steam. We
Mhm.
figured out how to use steam to heat things and move things. Industry 2 was electricity.
Yeah.
That was the root of the tree that enabled induction furnaces and motors and lighting and all that sort of thing, and electrical relays. So before we had anything digital, we could do automation. We could have interlocks by wiring relays together.
Mhm. Okay.
Then along Industry 3 came along. At the root of that tree was computers, which enable SCADA, DCS, historians, HMI, all that sort of thing.
Okay.
So the root of the tree for Industry 4.0 is
Is it possible to live without it? It's later on, we can talk about that.
yeah. So in my opinion, the difference is, can you be competitive if you stay in Industry 3?
Okay.
So in Industry 3, you can do a lot of things,
Mhm.
but without that connectivity, there are capabilities that you're not going to have. There's coordination you're not going to have.
Mhm.
On the other hand, some people think that Industry 3.0 is safer because once you're connected, now you're sort of in this potential cesspool of the internet.
Mhm.
But the thing people have to keep in mind is the greatest risk to security is not the internet.
Okay.
The most famous
Yes.
intrusion of any industrial system was Stuxnet. That
Yes.
wasn't from somebody hacking, that was from a thumb drive.
Yes.
Right.
And what happens is if you're not connected and you need to get data, and your only recourse is to stick something in a USB port,
Yeah.
that probably is not locked down and that's less secure.
Mhm.
But
Yes.
even a greater security is you even have locks on the doors.
Mhm.
Who can walk into the server room? Can somebody just walk in the server room and power off a server or log in and change accounts? So to me, the question is, can you remain competitive without going to Industry 4.0?
No, I'd like to kind of I struggle with that same question when I'm walking up to clients and the problem, and how did you tackle that, or how do you see that in the paper industry? Because here in Pakistan we have the textile industry, which is, I wouldn't say it's exactly the same way, but they're you're producing paper, whereas we're producing fabric, and we have that very same question time and time again, where people have those independent machines and they don't want to put it onto a network to collect data in a central system. So what are you seeing in the US market, especially in paper, and how do you see paper manufacturers taking the next step? And I'm trying to learn here how we can translate that into our market as well.
Yeah, really, I don't segregate paper different from chemical or wastewater treatment or anything. There's certain, for example, in wastewater treatment, you may have governmental regulations that impose security.
Right.
Mhm.
Whereas
Right.
if you're DuPont, I do a lot of work with DuPont or some other facilities that aren't paper related. They can make their own decisions.
Mhm.
Right.
But I do know about a project I worked on where they said, well, we're only going to be connected for a short duration, so we won't worry about a firewall. We'll just
Right.
connect it.
Mhm.
Sure enough, about 2 weeks later, there was an intrusion. There was a ransomware attack. Fortunately, we disconnected in time,
Mhm.
but it could have taken
Right.
months of work and completely wrecked it.
Got it.
So there are, if you do it the right way, if you don't have, Windows XP boxes with administrator password and no firewalls, If you do it the right way and make sure that's not your network, then you mitigate a lot of the risk. There's a right way to do security that won't give you perfect security, but there is no perfect.
Of course.
Right.
Yeah.
There's no unbreakable lock. Every lock.
Yes.
I'd be more worried about somebody being a rogue employee going into the server room and messing things up.
That's I completely agree with that. So it's easier. So it's easier to get an rogue employee to mess your things up than it is for a hacker to get it.
Yeah.
So taking back to stepping a bit back, but I wanted to kind of tackle the issue of, customers wanting to go to, so we discussed the competitive edge with, customers who accept that there's a competitive advantage to be had for going to Industry 4.0, whereas customers who are like, we've run this way for the last 30 years and we're absolutely fine living like this or continuing. So how do you tackle that?
Well, I'll give you an example. There was a project we did where there was a fire that took down a facility. They had to rebuild it and quickly get production going again, or else they were going to lose a lot of retail orders and potentially go out of business. In order to do that project, we really needed remote connectivity. We needed developers with the ability to connect into processors, do developments and downloads, being able to build what needed to be rebuilt so that when we got on site, things were mostly done, we could commission quickly and get things going. If we didn't have that remote connectivity, then that meant we couldn't, we wanted to get everybody on site and do all the work, but of course on site, they're doing construction. They're rebuilding, there was a fire. So there had to be some remote connectivity capability. Otherwise, it would have taken too long to do the project. They may have gone out of business and lost all their orders. Computer and IT technology. That's not what you do. That's what you do is you make stuff. You know how your process works. You know the chemistry and the equipment that you need.
Yeah.
Your core competency is not all this infrastructure stuff.
Yes.
So if you can outsource some of that responsibility to Amazon or Google or Microsoft or somebody, and they take that responsibility and they take care of that. And if you need more horsepower, you don't have to worry about, boy, I have to go into my server room and make room for that and clear space and put more racks in it. You don't have to worry about any of that. You just pay them more money.
That's it.
And they handle it.
Right.
So one of the biggest benefits of cloud is helping you focus more on your core competency. And for us, having come from Industry 3.0 in an era where we didn't necessarily have to worry about network switches and security because we've got a proprietary system, deterministic network. It's not connected. So all we had to worry about is, how do I tune a PID loop? How do I do interlocks? What's the right way to control this reactor? That's the stuff we worried about. Now we got to think about this whole networking and security space. But if you can outsource some of that, it helps you focus on your core competency.
Now, going back to that mindset, so how do you see the mindset changing from Industry 3.0 to Industry 4.0? Where so we've got people, and you've got more. You've been around more than we've had experience, so we've been around. So
I'm old.
Most of the I didn't want to use those exact words. I'll call you more experienced.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's people in management or senior level positions who are who have been around and have seen Industry 3.0, and now where engineers or companies come in who say, Industry 4.0 is the way to go. there is a lot of resistance, and I'm sure you see it also in the market segment you're working in. How do you tackle that?
Okay, I'll give you two sides of that. There's a justifiable reason for resistance if you don't have a good Industry 3.0 system.
Yeah.
So imagine you're building a house and you want to build this elaborate castle, but the foundation is bad. Then that whole thing will collapse. And that will happen if you put a lot of instability on top of a system that can't handle it. And I'll give you an example. I was at a facility where one day I was in there looking at the interlock, and we're doing checkout, loop checkout. The next day I came in, and that same terminal could not access the processor. I couldn't see anything. And we started to look around. Did a switch get turned off? Did something get disconnected? What happened is somebody added about 2,000 tags to the historian and soaked up all the bandwidth. So the operator station, the processors, nobody could talk.
And there's no managed switches there, are there? It's all unmanaged switches, and that's what it calls?
So essentially, what you need to make sure of is that your base level, your Industry 3 system is in good shape first. That's really the low-lying fruit. That's the investment that's going to pay off the most. For example, it's well known that most PID loops out there are not well tuned and could actually be hurting you.
Right.
Okay.
Agreed.
So if you want to make an investment to help you out, make sure the stuff you have is actually working.
Right.
So once you have that, then the question is going to be, well, why should I go to Industry 4.0 if I've got this nice performing Industry 3.0 system?
Mm-hmm.
So remote capability is a big one, because especially with COVID, if you have people who have a hard time getting to the facility, and because of social distancing, you can't work together, well, that kind of forces you in a position where your engineers have to remotely connect to see what's going on. You have to have that capability, and we're going to see more of that. But the capabilities, like I said, being able to outsource some of things that aren't your core competency, to have additional horsepower when you need it, and to have coordination. Let's say you have at the corporate level or the enterprise level, you know that there's two facilities making the same product, but one has an outage. You want to, as soon as possible, get production scheduled at the other facility to ramp up to meet that demand.
There are many people who are saying that PLC would be maybe vanished later on. So what's your opinion about that with the advancement in Industry 4.0? And I want to hear from your end, like, what's your opinion, so that it would be a kind of a stem to the people who are listening, that when we talk about automation is one of the things that with Industry 4.0, when we talk about PLC, DCS, SCADA, and HMI sort of a thing, that will remain. What's your opinion about that?
Okay, so my opinion is, at the field level, you cannot have non-deterministic processing.
Yes.
If you have a PID loop where you cannot guarantee that every time it executes, it's going to execute at the same cycle, your tuning cannot work.
Mm-hmm.
If you have interlocks where you cannot guarantee that I'm going to continue to scan at the same frequency and pick up on a trip, that's not going to work.
Okay.
So PLCs or DCS controllers that don't run commodity operating systems, that have specialized hardware to give you deterministic processing, things that are reliable, you have to have that.
Okay.
If you don't have that, you have no guarantee. Frankly, Ethernet protocol is designed so that there is no guarantee when you send a packet that it will actually get to where it's going.
Yes.
You need to monitor the bandwidth to give it that assurance. But there is no actual guarantee that when you say, I want my set point to go to 50%, that it will ever get there.
That's good. So another question that I would say to Pat, like during your whole career with engineering, what is the most accomplishment thing that you have done so far? Like that might be a sort of a motivation for those who are actually watching that video. So you can draw a light on that. One specific thing. Yeah.
Well, can I give you a project management example?
Yes.
Or would you want me to
Anything.
focus on technical?
Anything like specific to
Okay.
career. Yeah.
Well, when I was at Honeywell, we were developing an entire new suite of advanced control applications for a paper machine. In paper machine control, there's something called machine direction control and cross direction control. I won't explain those; they're complicated. But they also rely upon this scanning sensor. So you're making a sheet of paper and you're scanning across the paper, measuring its weight, moisture, caliper, and some of the sources are radioactive sources. So it was a very complicated, big project that we were developing. And I became the project manager for the group that was developing all these advanced controls. It involved a team in Phoenix, Arizona, Finland, Minneapolis, where else? It was kind of a worldwide effort that I managed. And the best thing about that is I went through this process of talking to every single developer, everybody involved. What do you want to work on? What do you think the problems are? And I created a plan. And we had a meeting and I presented the plan so that everybody knew what they were going to do, what the result of the work was, and they can see where it was going to end up. And after that presentation, I got applause. And I think the reason was people could see that what they were doing had an endpoint and a deliverable. And sometimes if you're working on something very big and complex, it's hard to keep that motivation when you come in and it's like you're doing the same thing every day. Unless you can see where that result is going to happen, how it's going, you can see there's a kind of a rainbow at the end of it. That's what can keep you motivated. So that was one moment where I felt very happy about what we were doing.
I'd like to just add, actually, that is a perfect advice to young engineers who are listening. Imagine what your final objective is, 20 years down the line. So once you graduate from school, and imagine where you want to be in 20 years, and then every day, you're working towards that target goal. I set out that target goal when I was, I was in ninth grade, and this career counselor that came to our school and was like, what do you want to be? Write it down. How do you want to be? How do you want to get there? Write those steps down on a piece of paper, and then eventually you'll get there. So yes, taking from what you've just said, every young engineer who's listening, imagine what you want to be in 20 years time, and then every career move that you'll make or every project that you'll take will be directed based on that final objective. So Muhammad, coming back to your question.
Right. So I have another question that is one of the questions that I get in most of the comments that I receive on YouTube channel. That is, if we don't have an experience, whenever we go to any company, they guys are asking, you should have an experience. And what's your opinion for those people who don't have an experience? What should be, how they should actually approach to get a job? Pat, your opinion about that?
Yeah. Obviously, sometimes you get these job opportunities where they're asking for somebody who's 20 years old who has 40 years of experience.
Yes.
Right? That's impossible.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
one way, when I list experience, let's imagine that at college you had an opportunity to work on some kind of a project. Maybe there was an automation project at the school you were working on where you got to work on a PLC because in the lab they're using it. So you can say that's experience.
Yeah.
Any way you can say I did something productive that wasn't just straight out of a textbook, include that as experience. Include any kind of internship, or if you are in college and have a co-op opportunity where you can go to work every other semester, use that experience. The other thing these days, LinkedIn is very good at a way to keep a running resume. So keep your LinkedIn profile updated and use that LinkedIn profile as a way to motivate you to find new things to fill in.
Got it. I just want to add that to that same thing. I use my LinkedIn profile even to get into UAE Army job, and later on with the GE, I got this through the LinkedIn because it's just number of the views, that how much you hit, your profile gets hits every day. So you're ranking definitely based on that. So this is really a good point, and I do experience same thing in my life. So this is again valuable suggestion for those who are freshers. So Rafey, what's your opinion for that? Like on that same question to you.
My opinion is unfortunately sometimes people who are posting these jobs do not understand enough about the said job or the required skill set. And Pat's agreeing with me 100%, and I'm sure he's seen it enough times where you've got HR people who do not understand what they're looking for, and they're posting things that they should at least have some understanding of.
Right. Really, what I think is happening is you have HR departments, especially in large companies, where a resume just kind of goes through an algorithm looking for keywords. And so the most qualified person may get excluded and not ever talk to anybody just because they didn't have the right keywords in the resume. So the way to get around that is find out who the hiring manager is if you can, and try to get past HR to where you're actually talking to somebody who knows what they want. And I've been on the other side of that. I've been a hiring manager trying to tell people, no, what we're looking for is this person, and you're bringing me people that maybe they're low budget, you think we're going to save money but it's going to cost money because we get that person in, they don't have the capability we're looking for.
Right.
So I kind of have a lot of heartburn about the way human resources is done at a lot of companies.
Well, it's for some reason it's kind of human resources have kind of become like accounting departments where they want to have three codes before they decide, and they're trying to fill up those codes with the cheapest possible supplier. It's the same with what they're trying to do with engineers. Okay, this is the cheapest engineer. Okay, let's get him on board and we'll train him to do whatever we need him to do. That's not always the case, right? And it's something that it's an organizational problem and not an engineering problem. So to engineers, it's not you, it's them. But the only way of getting around it, obviously, as Pat said, is getting to the hiring manager directly if you can.
So another question again to Pat, like if you are going to hire a fresher, what are the key things you would be looking into that? Maybe that guy have no skills what you are looking for, but what other skills apart from it you might be looking into his career, or whatever we can say his education or his past accomplishments. What are the key things? What's your selection criteria?
And are you talking specifically about a college graduate that I'm interviewing?
You can treat both experienced one and another one. Yeah.
Because what I typically do when I go to a college campus and I do interviews, what I will do is I will have some problems
Uh-huh.
for them to solve.
Okay.
I will give them an example of a control problem.
Okay.
I will have a drawing of maybe a reactor
Okay.
and some valves, and I'll say, what do you think is wrong here?
Mm-hmm.
How would you fix it? Now, what I'm not looking for is somebody who necessarily memorized the answer or technically knows the answer. What I'm looking for really is creativity.
Got it.
Because my guess is there may be no student that recognizes exactly what that is.
Yeah.
But if they have the confidence and the ability to think out loud and tell me, could it be this valve is not working right? Could it be that transmitter is out of calibration? Could it be, if they can think through things,
Yeah.
that gives me an idea that they have creativity, so that even if they don't have all the domain knowledge I need, you put somebody in a situation at a facility where they have to think through things.
Mm-hmm.
In a lot of cases, you're going to encounter things you've never seen before. You can't have every experience that's ever happened. So you have to be able to, when you're in that situation, be creative and think through things calmly and rationally and handle it. So that's one of the ways I try to see who has that capability. If you have that capability, even if you haven't focused on process control, I heard a story. There was somebody who worked at Google who said the best person he ever hired knew nothing about computers. He was like a philosophy student, but he just could think of things quickly and creatively. So that's kind of what I'm looking for.
What's your opinion? Like, if we don't connect to internet, still we are good? Or are you thinking on that side of it? Like, without connecting to internet or without connecting to specifically cloud, are we okay? Or we can still manage to, get the data insights from the big plants like power plants. So what's your opinion about that?
Yeah, like I said before, I don't think you can be competitive.
Okay.
If you are trying to keep everything within your facility without being able to coordinate and offer things like remote connectivity, I don't think you can be competitive with other people who are doing that and taking advantage of it.
Yeah.
So that's what I think. I think Industry 4.0, you're going to have to, just like in Industry 1, when steam came along, if you didn't start using steam to power things and you were still using horses and donkeys, if you never went to Industry 2 and adopted electricity as a way to keep your facility running 24 hours around the clock, you weren't going to be competitive. That's kind of where we are with Industry 4.0. But as I said before, if you have this discretionary money to spend, the first question you should ask is our Industry 3.0 system ready for Industry 4? If it's not, do the investment there first.
Yes.
Agreed. I kind of second your point, and I'll take a recent example that I've seen is where people have PLC 5s. I don't know, Pat, if you've seen those, the old Alan Bradley stuff. And they're like, oh, connect these to the cloud. I'm like, that's not the best idea. Even through the gateway, I'm going to flush the network and it's not going to end up well. So I am totally hesitant, and I've kind of excused myself from that opportunity, which is a tough thing to do. But I was like, no, you know what? You need to first go to, you need to upgrade your PLCs first. Or in some customers, they won't even have a plant-wide network. So my first thing to them is you need to get all of your machines on a plant-wide network, and then we'll think about Industry 4.0 cloud integration and stuff like that.
Right. If you've gotten to the point where you've got stuff that's so old that the only way you can find spare parts is on eBay, you gotta upgrade. And there are facilities out there like that right now. There are facilities that they rely on eBay for their spares. That's not good.
I'll tell you, Pat, you might not be aware that, but those facilities, if they close down, they ship those plants to Pakistan and set them up again with PSC5. So
Yeah,
I'm like,
wow.
oh my God.
We will use them again.
So I kind of like, they're like, the machine was running there and it's running here. I'm like, yeah, you're carrying, and there's an interesting gentleman out of Australia whose video I just recently posted on my LinkedIn. And it's like, you're carrying around debt,
Yeah.
and his, and that's debt that's gonna come due. You can keep kicking that can down the road, and that's gonna come back and bite you. But again, it's something that's so difficult to explain to customers. And even it's sometimes I'm like, I'm not the person to do this upgrade, but find the right person, because a paper mill or a textile machine, these are specialized customer or specialized integrators would tackle those problems. But at least get it done, because one day you're going to show up and you're running on borrowed time. It's not going to end well.
Right.
That was I believe like that was very good session today, and I had a very knowledgeable discussion with you, Pat. Thanks for your time. And Rafey, you've been there with last session. I hope to come up again with informative sessions with our students who are watching, our fresh graduates, or even experienced graduates who are watching, that they can have a better advantage of listening to the folks who have experience that like getting in talking to Pat was even very honorable moment for me. And Rafey, you've been there. Thank you very much again for patching in again. And what else you want to say at the end to finish up that call?
Well, I'll just, if you can see in the background, I've got my website. So if you want to know more about me, just go to dpas-inc.com, and you can probably find me on LinkedIn as well.
I will definitely share your LinkedIn profile. I will share the link of your website into the description of this video, both on LinkedIn and also on a YouTube channel. And Rafey, people are aware about you, but you can add a few things also.
Well, I'd like to thank Pat for his time, and it's lovely to kind of chat with seniors in the industry who've seen the process come along to where we're getting into Industry 4.0. Thank you so much for your time, and I'm looking forward to staying connected and chatting with you again.
Thank you very much again, and have a good day.